Understand. Understand.
What's up, Staunch gang? Happy Staunch-oween. Welcome back. I have been having one hell of a time doing these Tales from the Crypt reviews for you. I'm glad that you guys are kind of responding to them. And hey, a lot of you hit me up saying you wanted to see more and dropped a lot of your recommendations. I'm going to be getting to some of those, but for this episode, what I wanted to do is really dig deep back into my psyche. This is, still like in the 80s. It was 89, I believe. So this one does go back. And I've always remembered that first season very fondly. The series obviously changes in a lot of ways as it goes on. We'll probably get to those at some point. And considering that my Tales reviews that I've done so far were a little later in the series, I thought we'd go back all the way to season 1 for one of my favorite episodes, Only Sin Deep. The episode starts off with a bang as we see Leah Thompson as Sylvia Vane, a woman of the night.
Well, you listen up, little girl. This is grown-up time out here. You want to have an attitude, you might need some protection.
Seems like a rough life. She's out here on her own, and of course, representatives must come calling often. Then the tale takes a pretty woman twist as we see Sylvia Vane is keen to high society. She's no pushover either, so she's going to make her dreams come true one way or another. The episode really moves along fast. Sylvia Vane, she kind of, kills this pimp who calls himself Pimp Daddy and leaves him in the alley. And with everything that she steals off him, the next day she goes down to the pawn shop, whereupon observing some strange looking voodoo items, well, this random crazy lady runs in and kind of freaks out out of nowhere. Then, of course, the pawnbroker refuses the stolen goods. However, in true Tales from the Crypt fashion, well, we seemingly get a real creepo early on in the episode. Perfect Tales from the Crypt fodder. But it turns out they pulled an old Tales twist on us. No, he's not a horn dog, but he is interested now in her beauty. Strange idea for an episode. Let's see where this goes.
I hope you ain't claustrophobic.
His way of taking her beauty is apparently by making a face mold, which is an interesting take on this whole little genre. And it's kind of a pawn shop joke, as she has 4 months to redeem her beauty, so remember that. And to say the very least, this pawnbroker dude is into some weird shit. So as far as I could tell, he's doing some sort of dark evil spell to bring back his dead, decaying wife that he keeps, I guess, in the other room in the pawn shop. Dark stuff. Cue the 80s montage. With her new cash and her new makeover, she decides to take her shot at high society rather than being a woman of the night. She takes this rich dude away from his old lady and just kind of starts to live it up. And remember how I said this episode moves fast? Well, 4 months later, well, time is up, and her bill with the pawn shop is past due. So with her being addicted to mirrors and whatnot, her name is Sylvia Vane, she quickly notices some slight changes in her appearance.
My trip, we can go to the prom.
Still down. I thought this was the crazy lady from the pawn shop scene earlier, but no, it's not. She's just wearing a very similar outfit. Oh, I see what's happening there. The same thing happened to that lady. Oh, I'm putting the pieces together. I get it. Okay, maybe, I don't know if it's just me, but they should have gone harder with the makeup here. I still think she's absolutely gorgeous. She arrives back at the pawn shop to pay her dues, but she's too late. Unless, of course, she has $100,000. What the hell? So we get a classic freakout scene as she basically robs her own house. All of these beauty is only skin deep kind of tales have freakout moments like this. Anyone else see the substance, And it's interesting, too, because there's like a time limit here, and the time is up, and then we see the effects, something that also happened in the substance. In the middle of Sylvia Vane's freakout, her boyfriend returns home and thinks he's getting robbed by some random old lady. So she kills him. And upon returning to the pawn shop, she discovers the pawnbroker's wife, fully rejuvenated, if you will. You guys remember the Rejuvenator? That's another very similar creepy tale.
Give it back to me! I want my beauty back!
Still down.
I could do that. I could give you your beauty back. That's what you really want.
Wait, what? How's the murder in the local news already? Didn't that, like, literally just happen before this scene? I forgot to mention, the pawnbroker has this cop buddy who comes over for spiked coffees, and he shows up just in time.
She stole every scrap of jewelry the guy bought for her. Then she offs the guy, leaves the murder weapon on the floor. Do you believe it?
Her fingerprints on the gun.
Not only that, they're already on record from a soliciting rap last year. We're not talking rocket scientist here. The second she shows her face anywhere, it's a one-way trip to the liquor shop.
Oof, what a painful turnout for old Sylvia Vane. She has the loot to get her face back, but the moment she does, she'll be recognized and it'll all be over for her. So in despair, she takes her face mold and rushes out of the pawn shop, just before literally running into her old friend and smashing the sculpture in the street. And with a dramatic score, Sylvia Vane is left all alone, a shadow of her former self. Meanwhile, the Crypt Keeper applies some patented Acme Acne facial cream. So, Only Sin Deep was directed by 80s maestro Howard Deutsch, who was kind of, the other director I always consider when talking the Brat Pack films. I mean, there was Hughes, Coppola, Schumacher, and Deutsch, who would, of course, kind of be like, John Hughes' protege, if you will. He would direct a lot of films that were definitely in the John Hughes pipeline, and he would also direct one of my all-time favorites, the 80s classic Pretty in Pink, and what is essentially the gender-swapped version of that movie, Some Kind of Wonderful, where, of course, he first met his future wife, the insatiable Leah Thompson. But what makes this such a standout story in the Tales from the Crypt franchise is the writing from legendary Fred Decker. Just a few years off Monster Squad, and with, the body horror take on beauty and whatnot, well, this episode really finds itself in good company with other Tales episodes in a similar vein, and this one does stand out in my opinion. And I can't help but think that this film influenced so many other, stories or movies later on. Of course, like The Substance, but also stuff like The Rejuvenator, and especially the film Death Becomes Her, which is a film you will be reminded of when you watch this episode, seriously. And as far as the bookends, well, they look great here. Throughout the series, the Keeper sequences, they vary, but here they're top notch as far as quality goes, which isn't the same with the actual episode. A lot of the shoot here for Only Sin Deep looks very guerrilla, a real DIY in the streets kind of stuff with a little high concept take on the lighting. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying it's a little lower quality looking, but it's a cool tour. But Leia really nails that femme fatale 80s vibe, which really seems familiar, but in a respective homage way to some other films. It really attempts to make the most of this whole tale. And while the makeup effects aren't exactly standout or whatever, they're not bad either, and they're effective in their own ways. Howard and Leia are still married today and have worked together multiple times, and they're still both active. You can still catch Fred Decker as well, from time to time, wreaking havoc. And for an early episode of Tales from the Crypt, this one is a must-see. So let me know what you think, kiddies. I'll go ahead and link the episode down in the description. That's the same with every review. You can catch the full episode down in the description. So let me know what you think about this episode. Follow me on TikTok. I'm starting to post over there. And of course on Instagram at Staunch_TV. It's Staunchoween, everybody. Let me know your favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes down below, and I will try to get to them. And as I said, I might keep this series going after Staunchoween if you guys want that. Talk to me down in the comments. Happy Staunchoween. I will see you guys soon.